My sister broke into the lab I built with a $1.5 million federal grant, threw her dream wedding inside, and laughed at the warnings, until 300,000 people watched it all go wrong. But before the chaos, there was control. I am Jordan, and my life is defined by precision. 35 years old, with a doctorate in mycology, I have always found solace in the methodical world of science, a world that my family never understood. My independence was my armor. Right now, my greatest asset is the Victorian-style conservatory I inherited from my grandparents. From the outside, it's all graceful curves and gleaming glass, designed to look like a historic garden house. But inside, it is a fortress. I spent a significant portion of my grant money to retrofit it into a biosafety level 2 lab that met federal standards. Negative pressure ventilation hums quietly. Humidity and temperature are monitored down to the decimal point. This sanctuary is the key to my project isolating specific fungi for plastic degradation. A revolutionary environmental project by the United States Department of Agriculture. Every spore, every piece of equipment is federal property. The stakes are immense. For years, my parents, Linda and Robert Coleman, dismissed my work as simply playing in the dirt. My sister, Tiffany, a 29-year-old aspiring social media influencer, found it embarrassing. To them, my lab was just a place that grew ornamental plants. This dismissiveness hit its peak 5 months ago. My mother cornered me during a Sunday dinner, her voice too sweet. "Jordan, honey," she said. "Tiffany and I were talking about her wedding venue. That conservatory of yours, all that glass, it would be perfect. So upper class trendy. Very Instagram worthy." The fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Mom, absolutely not." I sat down my utensils and looked directly at them both. What I have out there is not a party venue. It is a federal research facility with active biological materials. There are biohazards, contamination protocols, and laws. I could lose my career and the funding. My father, the former municipal administrator, leaned forward with his patronizing expression. "Now, Jordan, don't you think you are being a little dramatic? It is just plants. It is not just plants, Dad. These are genetically modified organisms under federal jurisdiction. I could face jail time for misuse." Tiffany, scrolling on her phone, finally looked up. "Come on, Jordan. It is my wedding. Family should come first. Family does not ask family to commit federal crimes." The table went silent. But last night at family dinner, I spent the next 15 minutes explaining the negative pressure systems and the contamination risks in terms even they could grasp. They nodded and changed the subject. I watched their faces, searching for any sign that they understood the gravity of my refusal. When they changed topic to vacation plans, I made a catastrophic mistake. I assumed they respected my profession enough to drop it. My armor was strong, but my fatal weakness, my constant, silent craving for their approval and validation, made me blind to the manipulation that was already beginning. They had not accepted my refusal. They had only just begun their plan. I was certain my parents had accepted my firm refusal, yet the incident had left a bitter taste. The longing for their approval, however, remained an irritating, persistent hum beneath my professional resolve. I wanted them to be proud of the grant, proud of the lab, not just look at it as a free backdrop for Tiffany's wedding photos. Femling Dother. About a week later, they showed up at the lab unannounced, bearing what looked suspiciously like a peace offering. My mother waved a glossy envelope like a magician's prop. Surprise, Jordan, Linda announced, her voice filled with that overly bright cheerfulness I always associated with bad news. Dinner? We got you something special. Inside the envelope was a 3-day, 2-night vacation package to the Mountain Vista Eco Lodge retreat, but last night at family dinner, a place nestled in the mountains about 3 hours north. It promised a digital detox, organic meals, and sunrise yoga. My father, Robert, leaned in, wearing an expression of genuine, though perhaps performative, concern. We want you to truly rest. Let your spirit be completely at ease. We need our bridesmaid looking radiant and relaxed. Linda nodded enthusiastically. I found this place while I was looking for honeymoon spots for Tiffany. The reviews are incredible. You work so hard, honey. I hesitated, looking at the brochure's idyllic images of natural wood and stone. The timing felt reasonable. My project was in a stable incubation phase. The automated systems were designed to handle themselves for days. The monitoring app would send me updates. I was under enormous pressure to complete a massive progress report for the USDA sponsors, and 3 days of genuine decompression felt like responsible self-care before tackling that beast. You really think I should go? I asked, still doubtful. Absolutely, Linda said firmly. It's our gift. Consider it. Our way of apologizing for pressing you about the venue. I thought about the generator backup, the double security protocols, and Amy returning Monday morning if anything went wrong. A little fresh air would not hurt anything. I finally conceded. My mind was so focused on the logistics and the progress report that I completely missed the one crucial detail. The actual wedding date, her dinner. They had lied about it from the beginning, moving it forward to ensure I would be on this retreat. I left at noon on Friday. My car, packed with hiking gear. The sun was warm, the music was loud, and the sense of genuine relaxation was the deepest I had felt in months. For 72 hours, I would be solely responsible for myself. As I drove toward the mountains, I felt free, completely unaware that 1 hour after my assistant, Amy, left for the weekend, my parents would set their coordinated plan in motion, but my sense of a genuine relaxation lasted until exactly 6 p.m. Friday evening, 1 hour after Amy locked up the facility for the weekend. While I was still on the road heading north, my parents were putting their administrative minds to work. But they executed the break-in with the chilling precision of career bureaucrats who knew exactly how to manipulate systems and people. They had selected the right kind of locksmith, a man operating out of a worn van, willing to take cash, and trained not to ask for too much verification. When he arrived at my property's main security gate, Robert and Linda played the perfect concerned, middle-class couple facing a crisis. Robert wore his golf polo, projecting wholesome respectability, while Linda clutched her purse, radiating worry. The key to their deception was Tiffany. Linda held her phone, and on the screen appeared my sister, playing the role of the distraught homeowner stuck out of town. Hi. Sorry. About this? Tiffany said to the locksmith through the phone, her voice pitched with just the right note of embarrassed urgency. I'm the homeowner, but I'm stuck out of town on a business trip. These are my parents. And they're trying to get inside to feed my parrot before the poor thing starves. She offered to give him her address and full name for verification. To make the deal sweeter, Robert offered to pay the locksmith twice once to cut the gate lock, and again to install a brand new, better lock afterward. The locksmith bought every word. In 20 minutes, the gate lock was cut, and the front entrance to my federal research site swung open. The actual violation, however, was just beginning. Brady Derhambar. My parents walked straight toward the beautiful conservatory, where they were confronted by large, bright yellow signs posted at every entrance. Warning. Federal Research Site. Biohazard. Authorized personnel only. Protective equipment required. This should have stopped them cold. Instead, my mother looked at the warnings and scoffed. "Robert, look at this nonsense," she said, dripping with disdain. "Tiffany always over-dramatizes everything. Take these down for me, will you? They look absolutely hideous. How are we supposed to take proper wedding photos with these eyesores everywhere?" This was the critical moment. By willingly removing every single warning sign and stacking them behind the tool shed, my father transformed simple trespassing into the deliberate, willful sabotage of a federal research site. To them, they were only clearing away unnecessary decorations. Next, they located the main electrical panel and systematically shut off the security camera system. Linda dusted off her hands. "Now we can work in peace." Tiffany was immediately called, and Robert announced their success. What captured the garden house? The call to the event planning company followed shortly after. The stage was set for their great, selfish triumph. With the security signs gone and the cameras disabled, the physical contamination of my lab began. Saturday morning brought the invasion in earnest. 3 large trucks arrived at 8 a.m. near, carrying an event crew that specialized in transforming spaces into wedding venues. They were highly professional, and utterly oblivious that they were setting up a party inside an active biosafety Level 2 research facility containing genetically modified organisms. The lead coordinator was genuinely impressed by the architecture. "This is incredible," he told my parents. "Victorian architecture. All this natural light. Your daughter has exquisite taste." My mother beamed, accepting the compliment as if she had designed the structure herself. "We knew it would be perfect for our Tiffany special day." The crew worked with ruthless efficiency. The cruciform design of my conservatory made their job almost too easy. I had designed the intersection of the cross as the main ventilation hub, where the negative pressure system worked hardest to maintain safe air quality. This spot immediately became the logical choice for the central stage. They installed the large, but heavy DJ booth and a laminate dance floor right over the crucial air vents, effectively disabling the air filtration system. My specialized, high-powered photosynthesis lamps, designed to provide specific light wavelengths for fungal cultivation, were quickly repurposed. They became, in my mother's enthusiastic direction, fantastic stage lighting. The south wing, where I prepared soil samples and stored tools, was rapidly transformed into an elaborate buffet and bar area, complete with linens and crystal glassware. In the north wing, my dense climbing vines, part of my plant fungal symbiosis research, became the altar. The crew attached fake white flowers to my living specimens, creating a romantic natural setting for the ring exchange ceremony. Meanwhile, 3 hours north in the mountains, I was settling into my lodge experience. The digital detox was working, and I felt centered and focused. Before dinner, I pulled out my phone for a routine check of the work systems. Opening the monitoring app, I immediately noticed the signal loss from the camera system. I reassured myself it was only a temporary glitch. The wireless cameras sometimes struggled with weather changes or the remote location. More importantly, all the biological indicators were perfect. Temperature stable, humidity optimal, air pressure normal, and carbon dioxide levels within parameters. Everything was running perfectly, I thought. And I went to sleep with complete peace of mind. But last night at family dinner, I had no way of knowing that the stability I saw was only the calm before a catastrophic human interference that would shatter those readings by morning. The stability I saw on my app was a cruel lie, shattered by the reality of Sunday morning. By 11 a.m., Tiffany's wedding officially began. The guest list was a who's who of our district's elite law partners, investors, and most importantly, the groom's CEO. Dinner. 150 people filled my scientific sanctuary, now transformed into a glamorous, yet sealed, glass house. Tiffany's true motivation was clear. She had 10 different camera angles set up, live streaming the entire event. This was not just a wedding. It was a monetization event. Her stream was already performing beyond her wildest dreams, pulling in over 300,000 concurrent viewers who tuned in for the most exclusive secret venue. The terrible irony was that the more successful the event appeared, the more catastrophic the reality inside became. Beneath the elegant facade, disaster was already brewing. The fungi I cultivated were not inherently dangerous, but my system was calibrated to detect the one critical danger. Under anaerobic conditions, they produced a potent hallucinogen as a defensive stress response. The wedding guests had created the perfect storm for this primitive instinct. When the music began with heavy bass lines, the sound waves resonated through the glass structure. 150 people, breathing together in the sealed environment rapidly, drove up the carbon dioxide levels, blocking the critical ventilation vents with the stage and dance floor disabled the air filtration system. Dinner. The enclosed room began trapping and concentrating the released fungal spores, and carbon dioxide levels skyrocketed. The spore burst began invisibly, silently, with lethal efficiency. Stage 1 was immediate euphoria. Family or dinner. Guests interpreted the initial effects as wedding joy. The music felt richer, the colors more vibrant. Tiffany, radiant in her expensive dress, danced with abandon in front of the camera. "This is going to be the most special wedding you have ever seen," she shouted into the lens. "The atmosphere in here is absolutely amazing." But 30 beautiful, terrifying minutes later, stage 2 hit irritation. Joy curdled into horror. Every guest suddenly experienced the sensation of thousands of ants crawling under their skin. The itching escalated with frightening speed. Guests in designer clothes began clawing frantically at their necks, arms, and faces. The live stream audience watched in confusion as congratulations shifted to concerned questions. Then, stage 3 brought mass hallucination and complete chaos. When the spore concentration peaked, reality dissolved. The groom's CEO. Dinner. A man known for his composure, collapsed onto the grass, making swimming motions, convinced he was floating in a warm California ocean. Dinner. At the altar, Tiffany's dream became a nightmare. Her bouquet transformed into a grinning skull. Her wedding dress read like a living albino python. Screaming in terror, convinced the snake was suffocating her, she began tearing the dress off her body, shredding thousands of dollars of silk and lace. Throughout the conservatory, people saw walls melting and invisible predators The panic was absolute. They rushed the exits. But the 3-layer tempered glass of my lab, installed for security and climate control, was impossible to break with bare hands. They were trapped inside a transparent prison. A fishbowl filled with toxic spores. Outside, local police cars began arriving. But last night at family dinner, recognizing that they were dealing with something far beyond a typical incident, and 3 hours north, my phone was about to reconnect. At exactly noon, just as the chaos inside my conservatory reached its terrifying peak. Family dinner. I finished my final activity at the Mountain Vista Eco Lodge and began the drive down the winding mountain road. For 3 days, I had enjoyed blissful ignorance, completely disconnected. My car reached lower elevation, and as the cell towers came back into range, my phone exploded back to life. My heart hammered against my ribs as red warnings cascaded down the garden app: critical temperature spike, carbon dioxide levels extreme, pressure system failure, contamination alert. This time, the failure was comprehensive. The alarms were relentless. But it was the missed calls that truly terrified me. 47 calls from Amy, 16 voicemails, all with increasingly frantic timestamps. Dinner. I pulled over immediately at a scenic overlook. I played Amy's messages in chronological order. Her initial message at 9:30 a.m. was calm but concerned. "Hey Jordan, something's weird with the Garden app. Call me back." By 10:15 a.m., panic crept into her voice. "Jordan, please pick up. The readings are going crazy. Temperature's spiking. I'm driving over there right now." The final voicemail was nearly incoherent, breaking with distress. "Oh my God, Jordan. There are cars everywhere. There's a party happening at your lab. A wedding. You need to see this live stream. Your sister's wedding is happening inside your lab, and they're acting insane. But please watch the stream and call me back immediately." With trembling fingers, I opened social media and found Tiffany's account. The video showed my beautiful, precise conservatory transformed into a nightmare. Elegant guests wreathed and clawed at their skin. My sister, dinner, still in her ruined wedding dress, rocked in a corner, staring at things only she could see. Outside, local police cars surrounded the property. Officers standing at a safe distance, clearly recognizing that they were unprepared for whatever contagion was inside. In that moment, watching the live streamed disaster, the pain of my family's betrayal gave way to a cold, singular focus: my responsibility as a scientist. I understood the danger better than anyone on Earth. Family dinner. The spore concentration suggested that anyone entering without specialized equipment would become an additional victim. Dinner. If this spread beyond the conservatory, if people carried the neurospores home, the community would face a health crisis. More importantly, every organism. That facility was my legal responsibility, under federal law. I faced the ultimate internal conflict. Let the disaster escalate while I preserved my career and severed ties with my family, or do what my training and conscience demanded. Choosing integrity meant self-sacrificing everything I had built. With hands that were suddenly steady, I dialed the emergency number I had memorized during my initial USDA training. USDA Emergency Response. "This is Dr. Martinez. This is Dr. Jordan. Project ID UMR 4471B. I need to report a dangerous level bio release at my authorized facility." I was transferred immediately to the CDC. "Dr. Jordan, this is Agent Mary Smith with the CDC. We need your location, the nature of the organisms, and an immediate Assessment of contamination scope. I gave them everything: the project codes, the specific fungal strains, the estimated spore concentration based on my app readings, and the live stream link. Dr. Jordan, based on what you are telling us, we are implementing level 3 containment protocols. Federal response teams are already en route to your location. Do not, under any circumstances, attempt to enter the contaminated area yourself. As I hung up the phone, I knew I had done the right thing. I had potentially saved lives. But I had also just triggered the most comprehensive federal investigation my field had ever seen. My career was over, and my family's freedom was in grave jeopardy. My choice for integrity had led to the inevitable destruction of my professional life. I started the car and began the drive toward the disaster, leaving my life as a respected scientist behind. My call had triggered the overwhelming force of the federal government. I stood behind the police barricade at the edge of my property and watched the unfolding apocalypse. First came the sound of helicopters. I looked up to see not one, but 3 black choppers descending toward my conservatory, followed by a convoy of black SUVs bearing the seals of the CDC, the USDA, and Homeland Security. The wedding guests who had been hallucinating an hour ago were now curled on the front lawn, wrapped in emergency blankets. Twitching from the neurospore aftereffects, a detective, badge identifying him as Morrison, appeared at my elbow. "Ma'am, you're going to need to come with us. Your family is claiming they did not know about the biological hazards." I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter. "Detective, I have 12 years of text messages from my mother complaining about my weird mushroom house. I have emails where I explicitly warned them never to enter without proper equipment." They knew. They just did not care. He nodded slowly, accepting the cynical truth. He asked about the effects of the spores. I explained the neuroreactive compounds break down in open air quickly, but in the sealed conservatory, with elevated carbon dioxide and bass vibrations, it was like setting off a hallucinogenic bomb. "The guests will be fine in a day or two, physically. The emotional damage. Watching a Fortune 500 CEO crawling on the grass. Or my sister tearing her gown to shreds. That is going to last a lot longer." They released me just after midnight, confirming no charges would be filed against me. My family was not so lucky. The federal government came down on them with the wrath of every regulation they had ignored. Amy later sent me the court documents detailing the reckoning. But the United States Department of Agriculture versus the Coleman family estate listed several counts. Count 1 was destruction of federal research property. The warning signs they had so casually removed were federal property. Removing them was tampering with a federal site. Count 2 was causing risk of biological release. Ignorance was not an excuse when the warnings had been clearly posted. The financial demands were catastrophic. The entire project was contaminated and destroyed. Grant restitution alone was $1.5 million. Environmental cleanup and hazardous waste disposal cost $250,000, covering the person, high cement, team, sterilization, and excavation of contaminated soil. Finally, a fight at family dinner. A $500,000 federal fine was levied under the Plant Protection Act for willful removal of biosafety signage. Total government liability $2.25 million. Their homeowner's insurance rejected the claim instantly, citing Intentional criminal acts. Then came the guests. 150 people, united in their fury and public humiliation, filed a massive class action lawsuit. The medical costs, including ambulances, antidote and psychiatric evaluations, totaled $365,000. Property damage, including destroyed designer clothes, watches, and the wedding dress, all incinerated as contaminated material, was estimated at $1.46 million. Dinner. The final claim was the big one: emotional distress and public humiliation. The live stream had been viewed over 3 million times. The humiliation of business leaders and socialites, whose careers relied on their reputations, was immense. The emotional distress claims were estimated at $10 million. I read the lawsuit documents in a cheap motel room, 40 miles away. I felt a cold, hard satisfaction settle in my chest. They wanted a lavish wedding, they got a national scandal. The final tally arrived 3 weeks later, consolidating all the legal proceedings. The total liability was $14.475 million. My family did not have that kind of money. Tiffany's new husband, whose career was built on reputation, was fired within 48 hours of the scandal breaking. My parents were forced to sell the 4-bedroom colonial they had lived in for 30 years. The bank seized it, but last night at family dinner, and even that was not enough to cover the debts. They declared bankruptcy, but bankruptcy does not erase restitution to the federal government. That debt would follow them until death, garnishing every paycheck and seizing every tax return. Tiffany and her husband divorced 6 weeks after the wedding, ending a marriage that had lasted shorter than most honeymoons. Her influencer career, built on lifestyle envy, was finished. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated by the sheer scale of the natural justice. But I felt hollow. I stood at the curb, engine running, watching through my car windshield as the bank officer pressed the bright orange foreclosure seal onto the front door of my parents' house. It was a satisfying thunk, officially marking the end of 30 years of Coleman family history. I had told myself I was done, but some morbid curiosity had pulled me here for closure. My mother's carefully curated image was incinerated. She had always cared more about appearances than substance. The house looked garish now, the cheerful yellow paint false. My phone buzzed. Another message from Amy. The university confirmed my start date August 15th. Congrats, Professor Coleman. Professor. Not the principal investigator. On a $1.5 million grant. I had lost the lab, my passion project, and my original career trajectory. The investigation had cleared me of wrongdoing, but the whispers followed me anyway. The scientist, whose family destroyed a federal grant project. My crime was being soft. I knew they were selfish and obsessed with status. I knew they resented my success. But I had never suspected they would break into a BSL-2 lab, remove biohazard warnings, and risk mass poisoning just to save a venue rental fee. That failure of imagination had cost me everything professional. But they had lost more. They had lost their home, their reputations, and their futures. My father would work until his body failed, every cent garnished. My sister's fairy tale was a financial nightmare. I merged onto the interstate and accelerated, leaving behind the town and the family who had betrayed me. I had packed everything I owned into my car. Starting over meant starting with nothing. Dinner, but nothing was better than being tied to people who would destroy your life's work for an Instagram photo. I was heading west. toward a small lecturer position at a state university. I had lost the grant, but my family had lost everything because of their greed. That was the fair price of natural justice, and somehow, driving away from the wreckage, I felt lighter than I had in years.